My name is David Kucharski. I'm the Planning Director for the town of Lexington. Thank you all for coming and participating tonight. Before I introduce our facilitators, I'd just like to say a few words about the comprehensive plan in general, some of the things we've done to date, and some things that we're looking to do moving forward. As many of you probably know, the effort to update the plan is an important one, as it is establishing a long-term vision that will help guide the goals of the community, as well as help with the decision-making for the future physical environment of this community. The elected body that's responsible for overseeing that development and ultimately adopting it is the Planning Board. I'd just like to acknowledge that Planning Board Chair Jenna Johnson is here with us, as is member Richard Canale. One of the first things that we did after town meeting approved the funding to update the plan was to identify individuals who would serve on the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. The CPAC, which was appointed by the Planning Board, is made up of individuals with diverse backgrounds in order to reflect as robust and broad the spectrum of the community. Here tonight from the CPAC is Marilyn Fenolosa and Leonard Morse-Fortier, and I believe that there are other members as well. Deepak Aminani, excuse me, still learning all the names. The charge for the CPAC is to help develop the plan, as well as engage with community stakeholders and the publics at events such as these. I'd also like to acknowledge any town meeting members who are here this evening and any Board of Selectmen members that I haven't recognized. All the people I've identified tonight are here to listen to you as well as share their thoughts about the community. One thing that we all agree on is that in order for this to be successful, we need to have as much public input as possible. So in addition to the conversation we'll be having this evening, as well as the similar events that we'll be having this coming October and November, staff have been working with the CPAC and the Planning Board and will continue to do so on many initiatives to have as robust an outreach process as possible. Earlier this year, we had an educational panel series that focused on regional transportation, economic development, and housing initiatives. The intent of those panels was to educate the public about the challenges and trends that other communities in the region as a whole are facing. Earlier this June, we also had a public meeting in this hall, in this hall, where trends specific to Lexington were presented, and attendees had an opportunity to share their thoughts about Lexington's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We obviously need to try to reach as many individuals as possible, and to that end, we've established a webpage, which is up behind me. Visitors who can go to the site will learn more about the process of how we're going to update the plan. They'll also be able to view materials from past meetings, as well as sign up to be notified about future events. Visitors can take online surveys. We currently have one survey that's available to take. It's a general survey, and we're working on several others that will cover a host of topics, including cultural and natural resources, housing, economic development, and transportation issues. In addition, we'll be setting up several stakeholder interviews with town committees, departments, and organizations, as well as business owners and developers to engage them and get their feedback. We've also reached out to civic, religious, and cultural institutions to notify them about the process, encourage them to get involved, and notify their respective members about this effort. We are also going to be attending events such as the upcoming 25th anniversary Minuteman Bikeway, where we'll have information available for the public to further notify them how they can get involved and provide their feedback. Tonight's event is basically an opportunity for you to share your thoughts and perspectives about where Lexington is today and where you might like to see it in the future. It's also an opportunity for you to hear from each other, to figure out whether you have the same issues, concerns moving forward. With that, I'd like to introduce Deb Gilberg with the Gilbert Institute. She has facilitated several of these types of events through other communities in the Commonwealth, as well as federal and state agencies. Also with us tonight is Jeff Dietrich. Jeff is with Howard Stein Hudson, and he's been hired by the town to help with the overall outreach process and to work with the CPAC and the planning board on drafting the actual document. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy.
Thank you, David. Good evening, and thank you all for coming out on this very wet evening. You weren't sure what that would do to folks. So as David said, I'm Deb Gilberg, and you are about to participate in a conversation process that's a little different than a typical town meeting kind of process. It's a conversation where you get to speak to each other, and it's a way to help you all start to learn about what each other thinks and together to find some themes, to look at what's collective, to see what rises up. This process is called the World Cafe. Has anyone ever done one? They're kind of, all right, great, we have someone who's done one. So this is it's an open source process. You can look it up online, but it's a really great way for groups of people to have conversations together, large groups of people, about the things that matter to them. So you're going to be in small groups. You're going to change tables. Some of you may have brought some coats in. If you want to stash them in the back, you can do that, or you can bring them with you. And you're going to move from question to question. Everyone's going to be talking about the same question at their table, and you're going to be moving around, and we're going to be guiding you through that process. This is has been designed as a way to sort of get more information about what it is you all think is important for the town to be thinking about as they move through this planning process. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. I think you gave me the clicker. So there's some guidelines to how we do this. Come on up, have a seat. We're going to ask you to fill tables as you can if you see an empty seat. Great. You have a card on your table with the guidelines, but I want to go over them with you so you know what's expected. One is very simple: be curious and courteous. This is a conversation to learn from each other and to help gather what is collective and what is shared, and it helps to come in with an attitude of curiosity. And of course, courtesy, which I'm sure you will all be. A really big hallmark of this process is focusing on being in a place of inquiry versus advocacy. This is a really good opportunity to find out what other people think, to really listen to what people think, not just to try to make your own point come through. That doesn't mean you don't get to share your own point. You do. Everyone gets a chance to share. But the goal is to really look for what's common and what's collective and what's sort of interesting that's coming out of those conversations. Really big guideline in this process is share the air. These are going to be timed conversations, and we really want everyone to get a chance to speak. So what do I mean by that? Well, some of us are really comfortable speaking, and we can lean right in and start talking. Maybe we feel really comfortable with groups. And there are others of us who maybe like to listen a little more, or a little more reserved, maybe not so comfortable with groups. So I would like to invite those of us, and I consider myself an extrovert, who find it easy. You might want to count to 10 and just give someone else a chance to speak first. And if you're one of those people that tend to be a little more reserved, this is an opportunity to lean in and really share your thoughts, because everyone gets a chance to speak. The next one is observe time cues. So we are going to time you. We have a lot of different ways. One is by Jeff, is this countdown clock. So you'll get to see for yourself how much time is left. When there's a 2-minute remaining in the conversation, we're going to use this bell to, okay, just let you know that that's what's happening. And then when the time is up, not stop, sorry. When the time is up, I'm gonna take a trick from the Boy Scouts, and I think the Girl Scouts too. In a room full of people talking, shouting over a microphone is not a very effective way to get people's attention. So I'm gonna raise my hand, and when my hand is raised, I invite you to also raise your hand, and at the same time wrap up your thoughts. And by that way, we can signal to people that time is up very quickly without screaming in a microphone. It works really, really well. Let's see what else is next on my list. So, as I said, we're here to find out what is collective, what are the patterns, the themes, the things you're noticing in your conversations. So those of you who are really good at that, this is a good chance to really listen for those things. And you get to have fun. I know listening can be hard. We have some pipe cleaners. Feel free to make pipe cleaner art while you listen. There are markers. You can use them to doodle on the template. And we also have this table template, which you're going to be filling in as you go along. This is kind of the record of the conversation at that table. So while people may be moving around, the conversation is getting recorded on these templates. And we're going to be inviting people each round to be a scribe, to volunteer to scribe as you need to. Oops, that's it, I think. So we are now going to, I just want, does anyone have a question about the process? Because we're kind of ready to get started if you don't. You want to try it? Let's give it a whirl. Okay, Jeff's going to take it from here. We actually have 15 minutes. Oh, we do have a question? Might be a nice way to round it out. Is anyone willing to do that? Hey, awesome. Come on over. All right, now I'm turning it over to Jeff.
Yeah, so my job tonight is pretty simple. I am going to guide everybody through the questions and the conversations that you're going to be having with each other. So I'm basically going to introduce the questions that we want you to focus on, and where we need to give a little bit of context as to why we're giving you these questions in the full context of the engagement plan and the comprehensive planning process. So in this template that you have, this whole first column here that says intro values, why here, value about Lexington, this is stage one of the conversation. This is where we want you to answer these questions. First of all, and this is probably the most important part here, I hope that there are people in this room who have never met each other, and for everyone in this room, even if you have met each other, we want you to start out by just talking to everyone at the table, giving your name, and asking yourselves and saying, why is it important that I am here tonight? Why did I come out on a rainy, sort of chilly, fall is definitely here evening to talk about Lexington, right? That allows everybody to get to know each other, and hopefully it'll give you each an opportunity to hear a new reason for being here that you maybe haven't heard. Once you've all done that, we'll move into question two among yourselves. What do I value about Lexington, right? And this can be physical things, it can be spaces, buildings, assets, or it can be intangible things. That's why we've given two sort of halves on the template, so you can talk about the things you can't quantify about town that you love. So that's what we're going to have you do in the first 15 minutes of our meeting tonight. I need to ask one person at each table to volunteer to be the scribe, to record the conversation as Deb was talking about. So if everyone is good, somebody? Great, yes. Yeah, thank you. On each table, we've put 4 pieces of scrap paper. We sort of call them the drawing pad. This also has a map of Lexington on it if you need to refer to anything. But write on any piece of paper that's on the table. It's all yours. So we are going to start time just about now. Yes, and for the scribes, we want to make sure that the main conversational points are written down on that first column, the first column of the template. Yes, exactly. And we'll all be wandering around if anyone has any questions as we go. Yes, everything in the first column. Yeah.
The one that we would like to add is that the town appears to be a fiscally conservative, fiscally sound town. It is not afraid to spend money where the need is. Okay,
Great. You guys finished round 1, and now we're going to teach you how to move. You're not going to stay, well, actually oh, you got it down. I like that. Okay, so here's how it works. One of you is going to volunteer to be the host. The host will stay at the table. The host's role is to welcome the new people who come to the table. That's pretty much it. The rest of you are emissaries of the conversation you just had, and you are going to spread out to a different table in the room. So you're not all going to go together. You're going to go to different tables. So pick a host, and the rest of you spread out, move around.
You guys are naturals at this, I think. So welcome to round two. Round two of this conversation is about wants and needs, right? So the first round was introducing yourselves to each other and talking about what we all value about Lexington, right? Now we want to move towards what do we want this place to be and what do we need it to be. So there are 3 questions here. We're still going to do 15 minutes, and we're still going to do a scribe. So somebody else needs to be nominated for that. But I want to take a second to encourage all of you to make sure that you talk about all 3 questions, right? Don't get caught up on one. 3 at one time in 15 minutes is a little bit tight, but we trust you, and we think all of these are very important. So the first question, what changes am I encouraged by in what I am seeing, and why do those changes encourage me? The second question, what is missing from my vision, in my vision of Lexington? What is there in town, what isn't there in town that I think should be there? And C, what unmet needs might others be experiencing? Right? This is where we want to make sure that we have everyone think about not just our own experience in the town, but the needs and the experiences of the neighbors that we heard about in the last round of sharing. So 5 minutes approximately per question, 8 for the first question, 4 for the second, whatever the conversation flows to, that works. Just make sure you talk about all 3. Does everyone have a scribe for their tables? Yeah, I think so. All right, so we're going to get started. Bell at 2 minutes again.
I know, it's hard to stop. Yes, these are timed. We have 2 hours. We have to get you out of here at 9. Great, so we're going to take some time to hear a little bit more about what you're saying, and I think some of you might be noticing, but Melissa over here is capturing what we've been hearing in the plenary share on this larger template, just so that we have something to look at of what people are talking about. So it's our version of taking a little bit off the top of the conversation tonight. So I'd love to hear from some folks. What changes are you encouraged by? Who's got an example of that they can share? Does anyone have an example? Okay, great. Jeff's coming over with the mic.
So I heard happy about the new trash pickup service, but I also heard the opposite. Lincoln Field is great. The farmers market, Lex Farm, which is new. The community center is great. The renovated library is great. Concert series at Cary. New schools that have been renovated, and the composting that's now available in town.
Oh, that's a big list. Anyone have something that he didn't mention they'd like to share?
This was from me and not necessarily from the group. I love the new lights on Maple and Mass Ave. And I can't wait for the ones to be at Pleasant and Mass Ave as well. And I know there were some people who were against that.
Great.
But they don't live in my neighborhood.
I'm sitting next to you.
Okay, we have Josh over here.
So one thing we heard at our table was that we're encouraged by is the increasing cultural diversity, ethnic and cultural diversity in Lexington.
Excellent. And you had one?
Yes. It goes along with the same one with the lights. We were encouraged by the new speed limit around town. We've identified issues with cut-through traffic, and if we can slow that down, the new 25-mile-per-hour speed limit.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to move to the next question. Get a little cream off the top on that. So, has someone noticed something that's missing from your vision or the way you'd like the town to be? Did anyone talk about that and want to share some examples of that?
Is one thing that we notice is the alignment of the burdens with the beneficiaries. Was a little bit about the fire station. 20% of their EMS calls are on for 128 and Route 2, so maybe 20% of that capital and operating costs should come from the gas tax. sort of on that idea of how we tax ourselves and who gets burdened and who's benefiting.
Gotcha. Anyone else have something that they haven't seen?
I would say that we have the missing things would be was it the lack of public transportation or adequate public transportation, the lack of usefulness of a lot of the downtown businesses, or lack of ability or diversity of businesses. In the terms of the downtown, the lack of diversity of businesses available.
Okay.
So we echoed that as well in terms of town center and the fact that we have a lot of banks and nail salons, but not much else. We also talked about how we're losing a neighborhood feel where people help each other, and we don't see that as much anymore because the town is growing and people are becoming more insular and siloed.
Thank you.
Some of the items were a vision for downsizing in Lexington, so people can downsize, an integrated master plan for walkable, bikeable community, and a new radical, out-of-the-box thinking about the center.
Great. Okay, one more, and then we're going to hear some from the next question.
One that hadn't come up is the connectedness to the national parks and the historic roads, and thinking through the fact that it's actually a multi-town issue, 3 communities tied in there. And then the other one is that our taxes cannot solve or achieve any of this vision alone, so that we have to think differently about how we're paying for our vision.
Yeah. Did you want to add one last comment? Okay.
We had a need for more teen space, and also better bicycle infrastructure.
Great. Teen and bicycle infrastructure. Teen space and, okay, I want to hear about this third question. So some of this may already be coming up, but did anybody really talk about what other people might be having that it wasn't getting met? And I think the teen is a good example, right? That's a good example of that. Is there anything else along those lines? Go there, and then Josh.
Ours was unmet needs of both the empty nesters and the aging population without kids who want to stay in town, but simplifying their life on a cost basis is not possible.
And we had a discussion about the need that others might be perceiving that we did also for more effective methods and platforms for community engagement, and particularly to bring folks from different backgrounds together, different cultures, who might be, for perfectly understandably, sort of keeping to themselves. We all tend to do that. So like Deepak suggested some kind of a platform. We didn't get much further than that, but to bring people together.
Yeah, great.
I'm not sure if this relates to the last comment, but one thing I've noticed is some loneliness among people who are non-English speakers who come alone here with their kids so their kids can go to the schools.
Great. Okay, thank you very much for sharing. Those were some really good thoughts, some good ideas, and now it is time to move again. So this time I would like to encourage a new host. If you hosted last round, try being a traveler this round. Somebody stays as the host, and you can go and move now.
So if we could have somebody from another table join that one from a 4-person table. That's all right. If we end up with, 2 with 3s are better than 1 with 2. So 3 is functional. Thank you very much. So welcome to round 3. Round 3 is, I think, well, you'll see the questions in a second, but we have talked about visions and values and introduced ourselves. We have talked about what we all think we want and need from the town, so sort of how to get where we all want to go. And that's the focus of this 3rd round. This is going to be sort of the challenging conversation, I think, of the evening. And I want to ask all of you to serve as emissaries to the previous round of conversation. So whether you're a host or a traveler, if as we're talking through this, you hear something that was mentioned in your previous table that hasn't been mentioned here that's really relevant, bring it up, because the 3 other people at that table might not have heard that, and it might change their thinking about this. So our 3 questions: what changes am I seeing that concern me, and why do they concern me? Not just, I am worried about this, but why do I think it matters to the conversation we're having tonight? What potential tensions or competing commitments do I see among all of the things that we've talked about so far? If there are wants or needs that might conflict with each other, we want to make sure we understand that, and we want to make sure that we talk about that. And then 3, sort of similar to the last question in the previous round, what haven't we talked about yet that needs our attention? So those are the 3 questions. Like last time, 3 questions in 15 minutes. You all did really well with it. I'm sure you do well with it again. Everyone have a scribe? Great. All right. Thank you.
See how good you're getting at that? It's quick. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a few minutes to hear some of these. These are some tough questions. And I want to start with the first one. I would like to invoke the share the air. If you're somebody who's shared a lot so far, I really want to invite you to count to 10. And if there's somebody who hasn't and would like to do the sharing on behalf of their table, it would be great to hear some of those voices. So starting with the first question, some of the concerns you have about changes and why. Who's got some things to share about that? They're volunteering you, or do you want the mic? Okay.
Hi. A concern I have is that when houses are torn down and then new houses are put up in a neighborhood, this has happened in my neighborhood, where suddenly it impacts the water table. And so whereas before you didn't have water in your basement or flooding in your backyard, now you do consistently. And I know people have gone to the planning boards or whoever the right committees are and express concern, especially if a large house is being built next to a stream. And it just doesn't seem like they're being listened to, but not, they're ignored, bottom line.
Example? Anyone else? Concern?
I think I will say one thing that I didn't know and Jerry just educated me on is the tree canopy. I had no idea that we're losing the tree canopy, and apparently we are. And I'm not going to do I'm not going to do justice to this because he's the chairman of the tree committee. But I do think that is a concern, and I think there is, as we talked about, that's a conflict as well. Do we need more sidewalks? Do we more trees? How does that really get resolved? So. That's a concern.
Between trees? Yeah. Okay, it's a change and it's a conflict. Yeah, trees and sidewalks. Great. Someone have a mic? Oh.
Hi, we spoke about Small is Beautiful. That used to be a really good book a long time ago. We spoke about Thank you. That bigger is better in terms of houses. We're concerned that smaller houses are being torn down and bigger ones being built up. We're concerned about housing developments, large commercial housing developments being built in place of or beside open land. And we are concerned about the increase in real estate tax bills and also the ability of older taxpayers to be able to stay in their own homes.
One more, something we haven't heard, a concern about a change and why.
Some of you may not be aware, but there are a fair number of empty houses here in Lexington. Houses which have been bought, nobody's gone in to live in them, not to rent them. They're just on the street, sitting there, and it's a way for people from other countries to come in and put their funds into an investment, which they hope will grow over the years. And I think that one of the things that these properties could do would be perhaps be another source of tax revenue for the town, so to discourage empty housing.
Thanks. All right. Okay, one more. I'd like to move on to the next question.
This is just one more topic on this is commercialization in residential areas for the Dover Amendment. So where, it's a residential area and they start putting businesses in.
Great. Okay, who noticed, we heard a really good example of a tension between the canopy, the need for the trees, and then building sidewalks, things that kill trees, ultimately. Any other examples of those tensions or competing commitments that you're noticing? Great, we got a couple back here.
So we had one on the enormity of funding that goes to schools versus town goals, and that is a sacred cow. So that there is an inherent tension of recommending cutting school funding, period, or ceasing to increase it.
Yeah. It's a problem in a lot of towns. Dave's got a mic for you.
Thank you. Commercial development to lower tax rates in town versus the impact on neighborhoods.
Nice. See how smart you all are? Anyone else have an example?
The observation that there's families that come in to go through the school system, and when they finish, they go out, so they're not really part of the community, not there for a purpose other than put their kids through school, and it creates a problem where everybody has to do that because those who want to stay end up shouldering the excess burden.
Anyone else? Something we haven't heard yet? A competing commitment or a tension that you're noticing? Okay. How about anyone? Did you name something that was new that you hadn't talked about that needs your attention? Something that needs to be spoken? Did anyone create answers to that question? Got some over there. Do we have some over here? I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to weigh in. All right.
So we had one that Lexington needs a real look at how public-private partnerships can support transportation, economic development, and the live, work, and play concepts. Without the partnership, it might not be there.
More open spaces, but open spaces that have multi-use so that we can perhaps keep them open, but also use them for sports or exercise or other purposes.
Okay, thank you. All right, one more. Use the mic.
Old does not equal historic. So, like those two things in your open space example, that's a great tension.
Great. Thanks for noticing that. Okay, we're in our final move to our final round of conversation. So pick a new host and go find a new table.
Welcome to round 4, the last round of the evening. This, I should warn you up front, is not going to be a 15-minute round. This is a 10-minute round. We're cutting the time back because we want to wrap things up. And we want to encourage you all to do some synthesis, to think about everything that we've talked about, to read and look at everything that's on the table here, and ask each other and ask ourselves, what should we focus on going forward? What should we prioritize among all of these competing desires and wants and tensions and things that the planning process could do? What are the things that you want us as the comprehensive planning staff and team to get out of this process? Right? So we want to make sure that you all understand that what we're going to do with this is listen to this information and integrate it into the plan, the same as we're going to do at these meetings, the next meetings that Dave is going to talk about in a second. But it's a pretty, could be a simple question. What merits our priority and our focus going forward? So 10 minutes, a scribe at every table. As always, you guys know the drill by now. Tell us what we need to hear coming out of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that was a short round. Okay, so we know you have your templates, and we're going to collect all those, and those will be scoured and looked through. But I would love to hear from each table one of your priorities. And if you when it gets to your turn, if you've already heard the priority, you can maybe pick a different one. But would love to just be able to hear each table speak to that, if that's okay. Guys, are you ready to start? All right, one priority.
Okay, so one of the motivating things for me to be here was the senior facility that's going in off on the other side of Route 2. And the idea came up this evening that maybe if we went around to adjacent towns and see how they addressed the problem and how they had satisfactions and felt failures, and it would be good to do a little surveying of what other people experienced. That's all.
Oh, great. All right, what do you guys have? One priority, your favorite. Holly, do you want to answer? Oh, okay. Who'd like to? All right, Michael, great.
Our priority is to maintain the character of Lexington, the small neighborhood feel, more rural and less of the commercial development side. So.
Great. Good. How about you guys? What do you got?
Okay.
One priority.
Oh, okay, if you, okay, tax policy of the structure and the business model of the town as far as tax policy goes, and also the fact that if development, whether the commercial or whatever, is done wrong, somebody will get very, very rich off of it, and everybody else has to pay for it, so it has to be modeled correctly.
Okay.
So more and safer biking infrastructure. More biking infrastructure and safe biking infrastructure.
More safer biking infrastructure. Great. How about you guys? Got one? Deepak?
So I think some priorities are already covered, so we'll talk about school crowding.
School crowding. Yeah, you start hearing them again. Do you have one that hasn't been said?
We talked about the schools and that they must work for all the kids. We feel there is a lot that is not happening for the kids that fall in the middle. So we'd like to see that happen.
Great. Next here. One priority? Do you have something?
Learning how to accommodate growth that's exploding in Lexington.
Accommodating growth.
So we discussed that we have around 30 to 35% senior living, and they like to stay in the same place, so they need like more socialization in terms of, we have some more clubs, and they should keep up with the new technology, so we should have some workshop in library or in senior center to keep up them with the new apps, so they can keep their independence in this changing environment. And also they need some kind of assistance if they need to keep their house, like, because they are aging. So we have the LGTV and fixer upper, some kind of services they should have, so they can keep their place suitable for them to live longer.
Thank you. Gary?
We had a number, but one of the important ones was the vitality of the center.
Great.
It's communication to the town for different meetings, events, cultural events, school concerts. With today's technology, the information doesn't get transmitted, and it seems antiquated that we don't use the technology to inform the citizens.
All right, the last table.
Okay, well, we had a few, but I'll just go with, does Lexington want to increase its diversity, both economic and/or age of its residents, or is it content becoming a bedroom community where people just come to the town for the schools and then leave?
Question. Okay, well, there's more I know on your templates, and we are definitely gonna be looking at those, but we are gonna wrap up our meeting tonight, and the process is over, and I guess I'm just curious, what was it like to have a conversation in this way with your community? Great? Do you think you want to tell your friends about it so they can come to some of these other meetings? All right. Well, it was really a pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm turning it over to Dave.
So thank you again, everyone, for participating this evening. As was mentioned earlier, the feedback that we've received tonight we'll be analyzing with the CPAC and the Planning Board to identify the common priorities and goals that we're hearing, as well as if there are any potential conflicts or trade-offs associated with achieving those goals. As I mentioned earlier, there will be 2 more events like this in October and November for your fellow residents to attend and have the same opportunity to participate. If at the end of those events we find that there's a demand for more, we will certainly schedule additional ones at different times of day, maybe in weekends or during the daytime, and possibly targeting specific audiences. Lastly, please visit the website if you haven't already. Urge your residents, fellow residents and neighbors to sign up for those events. Sign up, get notifications, and take surveys. Yes, Mr. Canali. Wine and beer next time.
Hi. So I'm Richard Canali from the Planning Board. I learned quite a bit here. I really appreciate the input that I got from my conversations. I want to leave you with one thought, though. You got to think more out of the box and not accept false dichotomies. One of the things that sort of bothers me a little bit is, the tension between sidewalks and trees. That's not the tension. The tension is sidewalks and trees in cars, how we allocate space. So don't fall into, not just on this one item, but for the plan, I want you to think more out of the box. Thank you.